Hello, everybody. Hope you're having a great day. As you can surely notice, it is getting a little bit cooler here. Radical difference, 20 degrees difference between last week and this week, which I'm not complaining about. This is really nice and comfortable weather. Hopefully, where you are getting some reprieve from this scorching humidity and heat that's been hitting a lot of continents, and I know a lot of you are still going through a major heat wave. So my sympathies out for you. Luckily, I'm getting some reprieve, some much needed reprieve. So, okay. Wow, what are we going to talk to about today? Well, I have a few ideas actually. And one of those is going to be politics in Canada. Because, uh, let's just say that something weird happened a day or two ago, and I saw it on a reel here in a video yesterday, and I was like, really? Like, really? Is that where we are heading towards to now? This is where we want to go? So, okay, let me transition here again. There we go. So, this individual, the NDP leader, Jagmeet Singh, is one of the opposition leaders. Like, let's say there's the official opposition and then there's him. His party is the one that's currently keeping Trudeau in power with their agreement. So, whatever the Liberals want to do governing this country, they have the full support of the NDP. That's why, even though they are a minority government, they can still rule this country. For the time being, the elections are still a year and a half from now, in theory. So hopefully things will change soon because this is getting out of control. Yes. I am not happy with the way things are going, and they are going down quickly. And I'll get into the reasons why I think Canada might not survive another 20 years as a country. So, think about that. Our country, Canada, might not survive another 20 years. That's not a good thing. So, basically, here the video that I want to show you is he's giving out a press conference. A driver drives by, complains about the government, and his response was, "You're a homophobe." Yes, you heard me right. Complaining about the government is making you a homophobe, a racist, a bigot. So this is pretty much a page out of Disney. Wow. That's where we are at currently. You don't like the government? You're this, you are labeled. So let's watch this clip.
No problem. Maybe I'll take a pause if it goes on. If not, I'll say it straight.
I am getting here because of the background noise on site.
Your homophobia is very inappropriate. It's very inappropriate. You're driving away and causing an accident. I'm right here. You can have a conversation if you like.
Yeah, you can sort of that. You can sort of 3-point plan. Yeah, so what we need to do is, when it comes to the cost of groceries, there's 3 things we can do. One is we need to increase competition. We had the Competition Bureau look at what's going on. They say absolutely there is an increase.
We need more competition? Really? That's his answer?
Making more profit off of Canadians, so we need to put in place more competition.
more competition to bring down the prices of our farmers. So let's our farmers beat themselves to death in a price war to bring down prices that has nothing to do with the 60 cent a liter tax that the government is putting on the transportation of these said, you know, products getting to the groceries and into our homes. Wow. So, deflecting where the problem is, and then when people don't agree with the elected official, they are called a homophobe. Wow. Well, maybe somebody needs to inform his wife that he's a homo. Or did I misunderstand where all of this is going? Because to my knowledge, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has a wife, and Yang Seat also has a wife. So if we are not agreeing with our officials and they are calling the citizens homophobes, is there something that they're hiding? Like, are they like homos and we are not aware of it? I mean, this is Canada. This is the first country in the world where same-sex marriage was legalized. You can legally get married. So he is dishing on a lot of things here. Amazingly. And is this where we're at currently? You're just going to call everybody that doesn't agree with you a racist, a bigot, a this, or that. Hey, this is our government. These are our elected officials. Who voted for these? I mean, wow. This is my Canada. Apparently, I'm Canadian, and this is my government, and I'm supposed to be super proud. So, yeah. So, why I think this kind of behavior is going to lead to the decline of Canada within the next 20 years. Well, let's just say that these politicians are in it for their own agenda, their own wallets, their own whatever they can get out of being an official. And then we are running into the issue here where, well, they mismanage. They don't know how to manage the country. They don't know how to manage finances. They've never had a real job where they have to make ends meet. In a previous video, when explaining to the minister, well, how are people going to get to the Prince Edward Island and back? And she's just like, well, I can take a bicycle, or I can walk, or I can take the subway. Well, to my knowledge, you can't ride your bicycle on the bridge. Yeah, that's a thing. It's not a very big bridge, and it's one of the longest ones in the world. You can't really walk there. There's one lane on each direction, and that's pretty much it. So, yeah. And there's no subway. There's only 2 cities apparently that have subways. I thought there was 3, BC being one of them, but BC doesn't have any. Vancouver doesn't have a subway. So it's just Toronto and Montreal. So if you don't live in either one of these cities, basically you got to walk and take the bicycle to your jobs. It makes no sense. Getting the groceries, moving the groceries across country would be, walk there, travel them by bicycle. We don't want any petroleum vehicles doing that, which makes no sense. So, our ministers are completely out of touch. Hey, Polar Knights. Good afternoon from Norway. Well, hellos from Canada. I am getting very political here today, why I think Canada might disappear within the next 20 years, because our politicians are completely disconnected. They don't know how to manage anything. It's like being a politician was their first job, even though apparently they are lawyers, doctors, and teachers, but they've never had to manage these kinds of jobs, and they're doing a really bad job. Yes, everything is politics nowadays, yeah, but, I don't know if you just arrived, but, 5 minutes ago I played a clip where an elected official is being heckled by a bystander, somebody who disagrees with the politician's point of view, which here in a free country you're allowed to do, supposedly, and the minister just turns around and calls him a homophobe. So I'm kind of perplexed because, to my knowledge, that official has a wife. So if you don't like his politics, it makes you a homophobe. So what? Nobody told his wife that he was gay? Is he gay? We don't like his politics because we are afraid of gay. I don't understand where he's just calling people names because they disagree. And that's, pretty much a heavy thing. If I was that bystander, I would literally, sue that politician. Because that's not what the politicians, the bystander said. So get out of the office, you a-hole. So calling a politician an a-hole makes you a homophobe, apparently. And yeah, our politicians are very, very currently disconnected from reality. Yes, there is the possibility to vote for the opposition in the next election, hoping that things will change. Well, we already tried that in the last election where our prime minister was a majority government and then he became a minority government. And yeah, then he has one of the opposition parties back him up, so he's still leading as if he was a majority government. Oh, and I live in Norway, and I don't like your prime minister. Hope he don't call me names. Yeah, well, he's calling pretty much everybody names. Anybody who disagrees with him. So, yeah, why I think Canada's gonna probably disappear within the next 20 years. Here you can see there's a map of where most populations are living. And as you can see, it's pretty close to the border with the United States. There's a lot of country here that has very few inhabitants. So mostly we are close to the border with the Americans. Now, 3 times over the past couple of decades, Quebec here, this province here, has wanted to separate from Canada, just hoping that we can protect our French culture. Yes, I do live here in Quebec. I am bilingual. There is a minority. But having said that, I still speak English. So Quebec is Quebec. We are pretty much, different. The Maritimes, they can become an extension of the states. Ontario here, not sure what this is going to be. Would this become its own country within North America? I heard God made Canada like paradise, but to even shit out, he placed the US next to it. Yeah, well, paradise is what you make of it. If you like, living in snow 6 months out of the year, then okay, that is a paradise. I don't know. Some people like Hawaii and call Hawaii and Jamaica and all these other places paradise where there's nice beaches. And so Ontario, not too sure what would happen if Canada would be broken up. But we do know that these prairies, what we call the prairie provinces, would like to probably be merged into the states here. And yes, Vancouver and BC have always been known as North Hollywood. So all of this would be absorbed into the states in the eastern, and here in Quebec and Ontario, we would probably end up being just our own country within America. Not necessarily a good thing, but if Quebec ever separates, it's not going to be good. But you can see the issues here because one side of the country thinks one way and the other side of the country thinks another way. Quebec, to stay within Canada, receives a lot of extra money from Alberta, from other provinces, to keep its citizens happy. But these other provinces are also receiving laws preventing them from developing their own things, and we're just taking money out of those provinces, giving them to Quebec. Ooh, well, thank you. Much appreciated. Well, there's a lot of French people here that do not speak English and don't want to have anything to do with, English speaking. I live in a very remote town. And, once a year I have to go and see my doctor and have a checkup. And my doctor speaks English. And he writes out the blood test forms in English. And I take this paper and I go and see a nurse at the local clinic here to have my blood work done. And she reads it. It's in English, so she refuses to do it because it's not in French. So I have to go back to my doctor, say, can you please write it in French, even though we are officially a bilingual country. The nurse here does not understand English, does not want to, it's a blood work, you either test this or test that or test that. I mean, whether it's in English or French is the same thing. But no, she refuses it because it's in English, so I have to go back to my doctor, have it done in French, go back to the nurse, so I can get my blood work. Yeah, that's how crazy Quebecers want to keep speaking a different language. I understand their point of view because it's so part of the culture here. We are the only, region in North America that is completely different from the rest of America. And things have changed over the past couple of decades because of the internet. A lot of the youngsters do like watching YouTube and watching stuff that everybody from the planet likes watching. So slowly they started understanding English, but a lot of them do not. So, I mean, if we are going to understand each other, having one language kind of helps. It's already hard finding the proper word, but then translating it into other different languages just dilutes the meaning of stuff, and it's not good for people trying to talk out their differences. So, okay. Let's get to a couple of other maps here. So, yes, there's this ongoing battle where the people on the left are stuck giving money to people on the right. And the people on the right are the people that are currently governing the Canadian government and passing laws that prohibit the left side here from developing their own economy. Like Alberta has a lot of, petroleum, But on the right, people are like, no, ride your bicycles, walk to work. It's much healthier than taking your car. We don't want people taking their car. We are doubling and tripling, quadrupling the price of gas to get more tax money. And the left just wants to put a pipeline through and through the country so that everybody can have cheap oil. So you see where, no, you give us your money, but you're not allowed to pass a pipeline through and through the country. We don't want that. We are the government. You cannot do that. You cannot make money, but whatever money you are making, give it to us. So that's not right, obviously. So there is a possibility that this is going to break up the country. And the left side will just become part of the United States. And if this happens, every single province will become weak, even if we become parts of the USA. The USA will always see every province of Canada as a little person that we can take advantage of. Just because they weren't happy, they will be promised, yes, if you join America, you will have all these things. But then in return, instead, yes, okay, they'll be able to build a pipeline, but then they'll be taxed having to give all their money to Washington, which will be like if they're in the same situation here with Eastern Canada. Things are not going to really change, but they'll be promised the world in order to get them to join the United States. It's a crazy thing here, and this guy is completely oblivious to all of this. He still thinks that there's a middle class. Like, okay, all the poor people will complain that everything's expensive, but the middle class, they're still okay. They won't be affected by all our taxes. The fact of it is that it's the middle class that can't make ends meet. And he's not realizing this. He is not realizing that the middle class people are really struggling at the moment to feed. With all these rights throughout these generations, people have broken up families, and you need to provide for your family, and you need to provide for the previous family that you had with that previous partner. And, there's not a lot of money going around. So, yeah, where is this map here? I was looking for a map. So, I mean, the truckers, these are the working class, and they are the ones that, 2 years ago were deemed terrorists and Nazis and all of this because they couldn't work anymore. If they can't work, they can't make money, and they can't feed their families. And then we get into the, how do you reconcile with the Native Americans? And unfortunately, we get pushed back here in Canada a lot. I do understand the indigenous people here, but throughout history of mankind, Canada, when it was colonized here, we worked out agreements with whoever was the native power at the time, and made accords and made more accords, and throughout diplomacy, we spread out here in Canada, mostly. Whereas completely different in the States, the USA, where they went after the Apaches and just, mass wiped out the indigenous people. So Canada did the things very differently, but still, things happened that were out of people's controls. Native people were taken into, the colony schools, trying to incorporate them and brainwash them to our ways of doing things. And I say our way, but I wasn't there back then, so it's not really my way. But yeah, the church would take native and try to make good Christians out of them. And it wasn't always rosy. So yeah, here is another map. Mineral claims, boreal forests, historical treaties, settled modern treaties, land claims under negotiations. Now this is another map where the three nations in Canada, the English, the Native, and the French. So you can see how Canada somehow it has been holding up throughout, ever since it's been born. But you can see on the maps here, they're very distinctive and different kind of representation here, and it's very divided. And eventually, all of these factors will play a role in why we are going to break up. We have a prime minister that is completely disconnected. He is angering a lot of people across the nation who just want it to be over. And that will push Quebec to maybe separate. If Quebec separates, then the West will want to merge with the States. We will all end up being losers in that case. Okay, I understand that Quebec wants to protect itself and be independent and want to separate from Canada. But if you do that, the rest of Canada becomes the USA. So Quebec will be surrounded by the USA instead of having to deal with Canada and having to deal with the States. Could you imagine, being surrounded by the USA and having Washington dictate all our neighbors? That would not necessarily be a good thing for Quebec. So, back in the days where the referendums were proposed to the population, yes, I kind of wanted Quebecers, I understood Quebecers wanting to, be stronger within Canada, being stronger within America. But if it had gone through, Canada would have broken up. And in the long run, Quebec would have been a lot weaker. Yeah, compared to other countries, our totalitarian government is not a good thing. And our population is decreasing. We are heading towards the same route as Japan is heading to. So we need massive influx of immigrants. And it's so crazy, but you see here the pipelines from Alberta, the resources coming down from Alaska, where the West is already ready and pretty much part of the States. So, yeah. It becomes crazy, even the States, how they develop, but what's going to happen? How do we break up this? How do we move forwards? We're pissing out a lot of people, and it's sad to say, but our government is just, not governing, not managing the taxes, not managing the budget, not managing what people want, the laws for the people. No. Currently, they're just wanting to, do everything for themselves for as long as they're in power. And yes, you can vote for the opposition. Pierre Poilievre currently seems to be providing the right message. I'm not sure because currently we have like polar opposite views. I'm not sure that going the opposite way. Okay, yes, everything needs to be undone. Over the past 8 years, all of that needs to be undone. But then we need to find a middle ground. And going the opposite might not be the right thing. And then we do have to see if he is a good manager. if he can actually manage what he says he's going to do. Otherwise, you're saying the right things, but you can't do anything. If you cannot manage this country, then this country will inevitably disband. If this country becomes completely corrupt, we will become incapable of doing anything, and we will be eaten and swallowed up by the Americans. It's a good thing that currently America is so divided by its own politics, but if the Americans ever worked out their differences, currently they are very, very screwed up. And it's a good thing, because if the Americans get their acts together, they would swallow us whole. Currently, we could not resist. But yes, all of America is currently going through this similar situation. So for now, Canada is safe, but within the next two decades, within the next 20 years, if America, the U.S., gets their act together, yeah, we also need to get our act together. So basically, that is my show for today. Hope you've enjoyed it. Hope you've learned a little bit about Canada here. And I will see you tomorrow on the next one. Until then, be safe out there. Appreciate your input and your comments. Always really, comment down below, like and subscribe. Very appreciated. And I will see you in the next one. Until then,